Europe and Central Asia, average childhood vaccination rates stagnated or fell by 1%. Dr. Paul Wakum, who's a regional health advisor for Eastern and Southern Africa at UNICEF, explains.
There are several overlapping factors, and according to the report, in addition to misinformation and funding shortfalls, we have other things like geographical barriers. But you also have a bunch of children that live in conflict and security-affected areas. These are children on the move, children living in displaced communities. But the main thing is weak systems, the funding shortfalls. Funding shortfalls means we don't have enough resources to mobilize health workers, resources to procure the vaccines, resources to take them to where these children are.
Lastly, U.S. President Donald Trump has said Ukraine should not attack Moscow after a newspaper said he had discussed the possibility during a call with President Volodymyr Zelensky. The Financial Times reported that Trump had asked whether his Ukrainian counterpart could strike the Russian capital. But speaking outside the White House, the U.S. president dismissed the idea and said he had no plans to give Ukraine long-range missiles. Recapping on your top stories, Ethiopia has arrested dozens of suspected Islamic State militants who it claimed have been trained and deployed to carry out operations across the country. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Hey, welcome on the show today. It is a Wednesday edition of On the Move. Wednesday feels like the middle of the week, doesn't it, most of the time?
It is the middle of the week, is it not?
It can't be because we have 7 days.
No, the middle of the work week.
Yeah,
yes.
Can't be.
It is the middle of the work week.
I always argue with this one because the week starts on a Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah, and ends on
a Saturday.
So which is the...
Yeah, but you know what I mean. We work from Monday to Friday.
Tuesday is actually maybe more of in the middle than it is a Wednesday.
Don't be so technical. We know that Wednesday is the middle of the week.
Well, we are there where it feels like the middle of the week. It's not a middle of the week, but because our work day starts on a Monday, it definitely does feel like we're right in the middle. And in the middle of the week, you always want to create that momentum like, okay, Friday is just around the corner. I'm going to make it. But so we're going to have a good Wednesday feeling today. So welcome on our live streams. Remember, you can check out what's happening in studio on our live streams on our Facebook pages, and also you can find us on social media at Channel Africa 1 being the main handle. That's the only one we actually have. Let's let you know what's happening today on our Wednesday middle of the week feeling edition of On the Move. We're going to be looking at household chores. They can feel never ending, especially when you have a big family, especially if you have a huge dynamic when it comes to children. Maybe you have children of different ages and not all of them are going to actually keep things neat. Maybe you've got an older one who's always chasing the little ones to make sure that everything is neat. And then you have your husband who just throws everything on the floor when he gets back to work and searches for the latest remote and forgets that he left his pants on the floor. It can be a pain, isn't it? That's what we're going to be looking at. What are the most common sources of household squabbles and the best ways to diffuse them? That's what's coming up in a few minutes' time. And then in the second hour, this one is a steamy conversation. We're going to be speaking about the hookup culture. Seems like it's something that everyone talks about, especially with the introduction of online dating sites, people meeting randomly at clubs. Hookup culture is very much a norm, and we're talking about it in the mainstream. But Is it always good? What should you be looking out for when you are hooking up with someone? What are the dangers? What are also the empowering elements of hookup culture? We'll talk a little bit about that because there's so much to unpack when it comes to that one. And then in our Live Well, we were talking about menopause last week in Live Well. So today we're going to be speaking something that is a male version of menopause. It's something called andropause. So looking forward to that.
Never heard of that before, but looking forward to finding out a little bit more about that. It's always good to see, certain things from different perspectives.
Yeah, because us guys, we never think we affected.
Right, exactly. So let's keep things moving. It's going to be the next 3 hours. These are the conversations we'll be having, but we're having them with you. So you have to engage at Channel Africa 1. Find us there on our various social media platforms. As Ben said, we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube. Find us though on X, Instagram, TikTok, and the likes. All the social media platforms are there, and WhatsApp as well. We're +27 63 406 9126. Welcome to On The Move.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
O Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel África.
Ok.
Adivinha só, a Channel África quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel África está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter?
Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard?
Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126.
And we will call you back.
So you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am,
It's not just talk, it's your chance to air your views.
Share your opinion.
Engage with a community that values your perspective.
Follow us on our social media.
Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za
And get ready to share your views
on Channel Africa,
the African perspective.
Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
If you are living in the days when it's mommy's duty to actually do everything when it comes to household chores, you must be living in the ice age, because right now in contemporary culture, everyone is actually responsible for household chores. But then you have bigger families when you have different dynamics that come in when it has to do with household chores, when you have the nanny coming in, or you've got a caretaker who really is also involved with that. But also there's ways that we treat caretakers that's also a little bit unfair, I feel. And then there's also that vacuum where your caretaker is not around or your nanny is not around. Who fills in the gaps there when that is happening? There's so many dynamics, especially when siblings in the African context are the ones who are responsible for household chores. Then you start feeling like, look, who's responsible for what? No, I don't like doing that. You do that. And then there's this whole squabble that happens, and then the entire family is disconnected. And then there's that father who sits in the corner and watches everyone on a Saturday morning doing the house chores and is like, this is awkward. What must I contribute? And the mother is giving them a stern look and saying, look, why are you just sitting there while all of us are busy? There can be complications when it comes to household chores. We don't speak much about it, but to help us about looking at the common sources of household squabbles and the best ways to diffuse them is Sarah Bryson, who's a professional organizer and owner of Sorted by Sarah. Sarah, thank you for joining us here on the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I've just put on so many dynamics of household chores, and it's always personal, I feel. It's all about personal relations in the household. And, it's all about negotiating who does what and where. But the truth is, these conversations never happen.
Yes.
And what's your take?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is definitely communication. In my business of home organizing, that the first step is to really just put in good systems, because systems create a structure that everybody knows what the expectations are. And if you don't have those expectations and you don't have those structures, then there's a lot of unmet expectations that you just kind of really cause a bit of conflict, which you definitely don't want, obviously.
Yeah, what have you noticed as the top household chores that tend to spark the arguments?
Yeah, it's always those ones that feel never ending, the ones that have to happen every day or multiple times a day, and they're also highly visible. So things like dishes, laundry, tidying up the communal spaces like the lounge and the kitchen, rubbish, clutter around, common areas. Those are always the ones that tend to spark the most tension if there's no systems in place.
I guess that's because, those areas that you just highlighted are the ones where we use the most and are the common areas in the household. And, once you've cleaned something, maybe you've cleaned a surface, maybe you've removed something somewhere, someone might arrive and actually create more clutter in that environment where you've just cleaned.
Exactly. Yes.
So what do seemingly small tasks like doing dishes or taking out the trash often lead to major house conflicts? How so? And how do you make sure that you deal with that quickly?
So again, I think it really comes back to you need clear systems, because there will be a disconnect really in those expectations. People have different tolerance levels for chaos and how they want the house to be. And when you've got multiple people living in the same space, they all need to really work as a team, and you need to come up with clear expectations. So simple routines and clear agreements where everybody's agreed to what the system is and who's responsible for what are really the way to kind of resolve those before they even happen, so that you're coming back to an agreed way of, like you said, an example of a kitchen counter. There's many people who make a sandwich on that kitchen counter that day. Mm-hmm. So what are the rules, systems you can put in place to make sure that every person is responsible for contributing, actually cleaning, and making a home that is not chaotic but ordered and peaceful?
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that, on who does what and how does the agreement come in place, especially when you see people are using the resources of nannies, they're using caretakers in the household, and some have house managers. But it happens one day whereby the household manager is not around, they're not feeling well, or the caretaker is actually not able to be around because they also deserve a holiday. There's so many dynamics, especially when you do actually have someone who is helping out in that regard.
Yes, absolutely. I think then you've got two situations where sometimes you have a lot of help and there's other times where that help isn't available. It all comes down to really getting to a schedule or a roster, kind of chore roster, mm-hmm. that you can revert to when that help isn't actually there. So having a system, it's always good to have a 2-week rotation. You need to iron out exactly, okay, what are those causes of frustration? If you're the main household runner, what are those pieces that you just need support in, like taking out the rubbish, like tidying the lounge, like cleaning the kitchen, putting all those on a roster, assigning those to family members or whoever is in your home, and really getting people to take responsibility for each one of those things. That's quite an important piece, and it's really important if you're going to build a system that's actually sustainable in that way, to take into account people's schedules, people's capacity, who's in the home when, so that if somebody's committed to, okay, in the evenings before I go to bed, I unpack the dishwasher on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Yeah.
That person is actually there on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. So really taking into account the household, we always say with Sorted, you must make sure that the system is practical and personal. It can't just be a cookie cutter system that you draw from somewhere else. It's got to be something that's personal to your family and how it operates so that it can really run as a well-oiled machine.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about also areas on how to also treat your outsourcing. Some people, I feel, do abuse their household manager, right? And at times, especially the kids, they know that someone is there to pick up after them. I've seen these big families whereby they have a caretaker, sometimes there's no respect for their caretakers as well. But also, how do you divide tasks in patriarchal environments where we live on the continent where man says everything? It's whether you either do this or you know what, I'm leaving this household. I'm not going to be involved in such things. I'm the one who brings in the money here. You guys do the rest. So you've got that energy sometimes in some households, but we'll deal with those after our break. Hey, we're speaking to our guest today to speak about how to diffuse household chores, squabbles, and Sarah Bryson is joining us, a professional organizer and owner of Sorted by Sarah.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
In recent weeks, East Africa has seen a disturbing rise in human rights violations. In Kenya, digital activist Rose Njeri was arrested under the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act after creating a tool for citizens to oppose the Finance Bill 2025. Meanwhile, in Tanzania, Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi and Ugandan lawyer Agatha Atuhaire reported being detained, tortured, and sexually assaulted by security officers.
East Africa needs a reset. We need to get back East Africa to where the founding fathers are. When President Nyerere and his colleagues, Jomo Kenyatta and the Ugandan counterparts fought for independence. They fought for independence to get Africans out of poverty, to get Africans out of slavery. The leaders who took up power have since gotten into regression.
Neto Agostino, co-leader of the United Green Movement Party.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine.
9 to 12 midday, Central African Time.
On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
We're rounding up some of the most common sources of household squabbles, especially when it comes to household chores, how you divide them amongst one another. But what causes conflict when it comes to that instance? Sarah Bryson, professional organizer and owner of Sorted by Sarah, still joins us on the line to have a conversation about it. Sarah, I come from a family of 3 girls and I'm the last born. And, my mom tried her best to try and divide the chores between us. You do this, you do that. And we all hated doing the dishes. So there was always going to be a squabble.
So who paid who for doing the
dishes? And when neither of us could afford, anyone paying for it yet, there was a system, right? One is going, first of all, we all go to do the dishes. There's 3 of us. One is going to wash the dishes, the other is going to wipe the dishes, and the other is going to pack the dishes. But as some get older and some remain younger, that also gets changed around quite a lot. Also, there are chores in there that people don't like doing. Like if I was the washer today, I want to be the packer tomorrow. Everyone wanted to be the packer.
That system sounds terrible.
It's a mess, okay? But that's what happens. And I think children are a part of, the core of what happens, especially if you have older children who can start doing chores within the household. It's hard to sort of delegate the chores that they need to do. And if there's more than one child who is of, the age of helping out around the house, then you have to also delegate which chores to which child. So let's speak about that. Having children that are old enough to do some chores, how do you start that delegation process and how do you make it fair?
Yeah, I think it's such a good point that you raise, where there's definitely some things that just nobody likes to do them. There's many people who don't like to do the laundry or don't like to do the dishes. And when it comes to children, there's an even greater dislike often. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, when we grow up, there's definitely going to be a time where you're not going to have somebody to help you with that. And you've got to learn how to do it. And the best place is in the home. It's part of preparing them for the world. So I think framing it and realizing no matter how much they push back, it's actually an important life skill to learn how to look after a home and contribute to that. It's an important part of any team or relationship dynamic. I think it's an interesting system you've described there. I think it's actually really nice when one person can be dedicated. They know, for example, Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's when they don't have to play hockey, or that's when they don't have soccer on, so that they know that that's kind of an evening that they've got the time to do that. They're not coming home late. So when you put together a roster, having that space for the children to actually have a break and for it to be incorporated in what their life looks like, so they're not just having everything jam-packed into one. So yeah, and I think actually having those chores on a rotation, so if there's taking out the rubbish and doing the dishes, having that, it's not one person doing the dishes all the time, and one person doing the rubbish. So really just that rotation and taking into account their schedule so that they feel considered, but also part of the team that keeps the household running.
And do you think it can ever be completely fair? Let's say, you know, one of the siblings does play hockey 3 times a week and the other maybe doesn't have a hobby yet and they're always home. Maybe they're more of an introvert and they don't like sports, so they like to sit home and watch TV. And then you make the one that's always home do the chores because the other one is at hockey. Obviously, it doesn't seem fair to the one. And so there are unequal perceptions that happen in the home. Even if there are no children, for example, even with just a couple, there will be unequal perceptions of who does more in the house. How do you try and, take care of those tensions?
So when building the system or schedule that you want your household to operate on, an important part of that will be it's not one person laying down the law. If the main household runner is coming in and has these 7 things that they know they need help with and they just assign it without considering anyone, that's not helpful. There has to be some sort of family meeting where you can come together, where you can decide exactly what are the things that need to be done, and to come to an agreement fairly on, okay, well, these are all the things I'm doing, because then perhaps the partner or the kids who aren't doing as much can start to see how unequal that is and realize the need for that distribution of those chores and decluttering, all those systems, anything that needs to be done. So the biggest piece is that everybody needs to buy in. It can't just be one person deciding and dragging everyone along.
Well, there's one word that's been recurring throughout this conversation, Sarah, and that word is systems. And many people don't know how to build those systems. Many of us are adults who never were taught, about certain systems to put in place. It feels like, we're just here learning as we go. So could you recommend a particular system that we could try and implement to, ease out those household squabbles when it comes to the chores of a home?
I think the best start is when you have that first family meeting, a 2-week kind of chore chart where you've taken into account, you have the list of what needs to be done, and you have the schedules of everybody, and you put that somewhere very visible. On the fridge is a great place because then everybody can see it. The other piece around maintaining systems in a household is very much around the just rules. So, for example, a dishwasher, whoever's on the dishwasher or washing the dishes, that has to be done before that person goes to bed. They can't say, I'll do it in the morning, because then that creates a whole...
Sounds like you know my son there, Sarah.
Things like wiping the counter after a meal. It doesn't matter if you had a sandwich or you made cereal. Rather have a system where if you made something on that counter, it gets wiped. Then that's just the rule. And then another piece is everything in your home should have a designated place. It's so difficult for kids especially, or anyone, if you ask to clean up the lounge, but there's a bunch of things in there that don't have a place, that you don't know where they go. it's very difficult to actually clean that up. So I think having a place for everything in communal spaces and in your personal spaces is so key. That's something we really at Sorted just try to push hard, is having a place for everything in your home should have a place so that your home serves you. You don't serve it and running after it all the time, you know.
Yeah, and Sarah, how do we keep Dad in it, and how do we convince him to also get involved?
Again, it's everybody's got to, it can't just be a laying down one person having to nag the whole time. It's the mental load that person carries, which is often the mom of the house that's just constantly having to nag. There's got to be a way that everybody understands the importance of contributing, and that's all about communication, right? You can't do that without communication and relationship and buying. So yeah, very important to just all be on the same page and see your household as a team effort to keep it ordered.
Well, Sarah, where can we find out a little bit more about Sorted by Sarah, and of course get more of that great advice and, you know, some of the services you offer?
Yeah, you can find us on the web at sortedbysarah.co.za. We are also on Instagram with the handle sorted.za. Our contact numbers and emails are all on there for anyone to get in touch that needs help with creating a house and bringing chaos into order.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your time. That's professional organizer and owner of Sorted by Sarah, Sarah Bryson, giving us a look at how we can, you know, bring down all the chaos when it comes to household chores and making sure that, you know, all the chores are done and the squabbles are diffused. It's 9:30 Central Africa time. Let's get our latest sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And a very good morning from the sports desk. I am Musibu Dimakura with the latest sports news at the Sawa. So Springbok bruiser, that is Jasper Wiese, will miss the bulk of the rugby championship as punishment for his headbutt on an Italian player in Gqeberha in South Africa's Eastern Cape province this past weekend. So he's been slapped with a 4-match suspension after receiving a red card in South Africa's 45-0 thrashing of Italy. The suspension, confirmed by World Rugby's disciplinary panel on Tuesday, means that the player will miss the final test match of the incoming series against Georgia this coming Saturday in Nelspruit in the Mpumalanga province. The both rugby championship clashes against Australia in September. He will also be available again for the return match against New Zealand in Wellington on the 13th of September. That will be followed by 2 fixtures against Argentina in Durban as well as in London. Onto this story. So British tennis player Tara Moore has been banned for 4 years for a doping offence despite being cleared by an independent tribunal 18 months ago. An appeal by the International Tennis Integrity Agency has been upheld by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. The 4-year ban starts immediately but will be reduced to 19 months. Moore was provisionally suspended when the case first came to light. The 32-year-old was Britain's top-ranked women's doubles player when she was provisionally banned in May of 2022, having tested positive for androlone as well as boledolone at a tournament in Colombia's capital, Bogota, the previous month. But in December of 2023, an independent tribunal ruled contaminated meat was the source of the positive test and that Moore bore no fault or negligence. Now, the British player said she suffered 19 months of lost time and emotional distress and that her reputation had been damaged as a result of the case. She returned to tour in April of 2024 and has played mostly on the ITF World Tour since then. Earnings, by the way, for doubles players are meagre, although Moore did make it into the main draw for Wimbledon as well as the US Open just last year, as well as the Australian Open back in January of this year. But following a hearing in March, this ruling from the Court of Arbitration for Sport means she will not be free to play again until the start of the 2028 season. In football news now, 2-time champions, the DR Congo, have laid down a bold statement of intent ahead of the Total Energies 2024 Chan tournament, unveiling a 36-man preliminary squad as they target a historic third continental crown. So the head coach, Otis Ngoma, has assembled a star-studded home-based squad that is dominated by top clubs such as TP Mazembe, FC Lopopo, AS Manema Union, as well as A BC Rangers as the Leopard side kick now to relive their past CHAN glories of 2009 and 2016. So with CHAN 2024 set to be co-hosted by Kenya, Uganda as well as Tanzania from the 2nd until the 30th of August, the DR Congo have been drawn in a fiercely competitive group. They are in Group A, also dubbed the Group of Death, alongside the host nation Kenya, two-time champions Morocco, Angola as well as Zambia. That tournament, by the way, is starting in August from the 2nd until the 30th of August. The team will enter training in Kinshasa today until the 30th of July as they continue their preparations for the CHAN tournament. Back home now, accepting his second honorary doctorate from the Wits University on Tuesday, Kaizer Chiefs chairman Kaizer Motaung says together with the club, they have serviced the country very well in the 55 years of its existence. Motaung received an honorary doctorate in commerce during the graduation ceremony at Wits yesterday. This was the second honorary doctorate for Motaung after he was bestowed by the University of Cape Town with the Doctor of Social Science in July of 2022 for his contribution to football as well as social development in the country. Motaung says Chiefs have brought a lot of excitement to the country.
A couple of weeks ago, we won the cup after 10 years or so. The country was in a very, very different mood. I've never seen the country like that. It was like there was a World Cup that was played here, and yet it was just a local competition, a local cup. The Nedbank Cup. I think that demonstrated the power that our supporters have. Everywhere we looked at, when you watch TV, you see universities, hostels, townships, everywhere people were celebrating. So
Motaung was actually 25 years of age when he formed Chiefs back in 1970 with some of his former teammates and officials from Orlando Pirates when they broke away from the club. Now 55 years later and in charge of the biggest football club in the country, he's actually very proud of all the achievements and also being a member of the Wits community. Well, that's a wrap from the Sports Desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Call us on +27 11714 4459. It's 9:35 a.m. Central African Time for Channel Africa Sport. I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Have you been struggling to find Channel Africa?
Oh yes, where can I find you guys?
Well, you are in luck.
Warning, radioactive zone detected.
Listen to the African perspective on our brand new SABC Plus app. Download the fresh and easy to use app from sabcplus.com or the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Or just command your phone to find SABC Plus on your phone and check out all this good stuff. And that's where you will find Channel Africa, the African perspective. Oh yes, this is fresh and easy. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
Thank you so much, Musibudi. Let's move on now and get our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good morning. In our top business news at this hour, Egypt plans to launch a revamped national commodity exchange to oversee imports and exports of essential agricultural goods. This as the country strives to secure consistent supplies and keep prices steady. In a statement, the presidency said the exchange, in which the military-linked Future of Egypt for Sustainable Development has a majority stake, will act as a safety valve for local markets and balance the interests of producers and consumers. While the statements did not say which goods would be traded through the exchange, a preliminary announcement in March said it would oversee crops, processed foods, animal feed, fertilizers, pesticides, and veterinary medicines. South Africa's Transport Minister Barbara Creecy has dissolved the Road Accident Fund Board due to persistent governance and operational challenges. She says the challenges have significantly impacted the RAF's ability to fulfill its mandate and include costly litigation over accounting standards, inconsistent handling of the CEO's suspension, frequent default judgments, deep divisions within the board, and failure to fill critical executive positions. The department's Colin Msibi says this decision aims to address these issues and improve the RAF's effectiveness.
Minister Creecy has reiterated the department's commitment to continue to pursue all necessary measures to restore institutional stability and enhance the RAF's capacity to fulfill its statutory obligations to the public and ensure a speedy and equitable access to the road accident benefit scheme by the road accident victims. She further emphasized her department's intention to finalize the road accident benefit scheme bill, which will introduce a no-fault system to make it easier for road accident victims.
Experts are encouraging African countries to increase investments in ministries that facilitate trade, such as the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition in South Africa. Executive Director at the African Leather and Leather Products Institute, Nicholas Mudungwe, says this is because globally, ministries of industry and trade have led industrialization. This as the continent looks to industrialization for growth. Speaking at the two-day manufacturing Indaba, Mudungwe says a policy to industrialize without financial backing is as good as none.
Each African country that has put up an industrial policy, it should also put a budget in the Ministry of Industry or in the Department of Trade and Industry. South Africa, fortunately, you already have that instrument under IDC. But most African countries, they don't put money, they expect investors to come from abroad. So for industrialization to take place, we need to put money in the relevant institutions, relevant ministries to support policy implementation.
The International Monetary Fund has warned Ethiopia that its reform agenda under a $3.4 billion loan deal is facing challenges from declining donor support. This is despite the country meeting its key program targets. The IMF says although the country has implemented notable economic adjustments, rising risks such as resurgent parallel foreign exchange market and fragile security conditions could hinder progress and complicate debt restructuring efforts. U.S. legislation to cut more than $9 billion in foreign aid and funding for public broadcasting is expected to allow for an amendment that would exempt cuts to PEPFAR. PEPFAR stands for the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. The director for the White House Office of Management and Budget, Ross Vogt, told reporters that they were on board with excluding PEPFAR funding from the rescission legislation. Sherwin Bryce Peace reports that the legislation already passed the House of Representatives in June.
The White House and Senate Republicans have indicated that they would support an amendment to remove a $400 million cut to PEPFAR funding in the rescission legislation package that seeks cuts in excess of $9 billion to the Department of State, the U.S. Agency for Development, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds media platforms like NPR and PBS. The Senate is expected to begin voting on the rescission legislation Tuesday.
Now, taking a look at the indicators at this hour, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,529 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 24. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 58. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha and 5. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 56. Russia, 78 rubles and 1. India, it's 85 rupees at 90. China, 7 yuan 17. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 86 cents. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,333 and platinum at $1,403 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $68.88 a barrel. And those are your business news at this hour. I'll be back with more in the next hour. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459 for Channel Africa Business. I am Bontle Hetbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Hello, Africa. We would love to hear your voice on our radio station. Be part of the fun and send a shout out or greeting message to your loved ones and your favorite Channel Africa presenters. Whether you're in Africa, the diaspora, or anywhere else around the globe, we want to hear your voice. Send your shout out message by sending an email to info@channelafrica.co.za or send them to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Help us diversify our sound with your voice. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
No time to waste. Be on the move with Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa.
The African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African time.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Hey guys, Debo Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news, and views and
a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the
feast full of musicians here. Demtuda, the musical chef, and Imo Sipoma Kudulela is also there. That one is titled Scoot is Nice. This one is Palesa and her mother's favorite. It's still top hit.
Always will be our top hit.
Okay, fantastic. 49 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time. Hey, we want to get some thoughts from you. We want you to tell us just in a few minutes time. We'll put in the question on our social media around what are the household chores that you loathe and that you hate the most. Even now, maybe you've grown up and you thought that you would outgrow the peeve of that particular household chore, but it's just not gone away. You still hate that thing. I have to say, I hate washing the dishes.
Me too. Oh goodness, it definitely is my worst.
And I like
chore.
eating a lot, and so I'm one of those people. When I eat, I can just like put away a dish, right, and then like I feel like another snack a little bit later,
and then you take another dish,
and then it's just me, and then someone will come and like, who's been here with you? I'm like, no, it's just me.
And all these dishes in
there.
My
task as well to clean up. Yeah, that's my thing.
No, I also really don't like washing the dishes, and I think it also comes from childhood.
Yeah.
When, like I said, me and my sisters we used to wash the dishes together.
Yeah.
Now you can imagine my first sister gets older and she's no longer in the house in the washing dishes.
Now you and your other
and
sister
then
have to
there's
compete.
The two of us, right? And then my other sister also gets older, and I'm the one left to just like wash the dishes by myself.
That dynamic was interesting, isn't it? Is when she got older, were you guys still staying together?
Well, there were times when she no longer was staying there, and I was left.
Oh yeah, no,
and
but then
like,
it's up to you.
Then
now.
I have to now wash the dishes all by myself. And then I always say, no, I have a dishwasher at home. I don't have a dishwasher, but my son, he is my dishwasher.
I'm sure he doesn't want to hear that. And if he does hear that, he'll be like, Mom, you call me your dishwasher. I'm no longer doing this anymore.
No, I've told him that he's my dishwasher to my face. But I have a rule in my house because it's just the two of us. Whoever cooks doesn't wash the dishes. So, and because everybody does all chores in my house, there are days, even though I do most of the cooking, of course, but there are days that he does cook. And on those days, I do wash the dishes.
All right. We'll let you know when to go to our social media to let us know what are your worst household chores. Thank you to everyone who's been coming into our live stream. Pilko Oliveira, Victor, I see Gift Byton is there, Thompson Mshunga, Mwanzi, Joseph, Ishmael Mpondo. There's so many to actually read out, but thank you anyone who is joining us there on our live stream. You are appreciated. Just to let us know where you are listening to us from, and you can also engage with us on that live stream. Tell us what are your worst household chores, and you can just do that while you're watching that live stream on our Facebook page and our YouTube page as well. Remember, our YouTube page is at Channel Africa 1.
Have you been struggling to find Channel Africa?
Oh yes, where can I find you guys?
Well, you are in luck.
Warning, radioactive zone detected.
Listen to the African perspective on our brand new SABC Plus app. Download the fresh and easy to use app from sabcplus.com or the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Or just command your phone to find SABC Plus on your phone and check out all this good stuff. And that's where you will find Channel Africa, the African perspective. Oh yes, This is Fresh and Easy.
The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the...
In a car on a road trip, just taking a ride from Cape Town to Cairo. That one is Otimi with one title, Shade, featuring Nasty Seats. 96 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time. We moving into our multiple conversations and we want you to take part in them. But right now we still want you to engage with this first hour conversation. We are talking about laundry. Is something that is a pet peeve for someone. Other people can say, you know what, I don't like washing the dishes. Another thing that is hectic for me, I love doing it, but after that Saturday that I'm out there doing it, I feel like I've been on a big exercise.
What?
The garden.
Oh, I love doing the garden.
I love doing the garden, but with my garden,
yeah,
can be a little bit hectic.
You know what I also hate? I really loathe ironing.
Yeah, me too.
I loathe ironing.
I never do it.
Me neither.
Never do it. Can you see?
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
I see people who do, that bulk ironing with all their laundry.
Yeah, I never do it in one go.
I'm like a prepaid ironer. I'm like, this is what I'm going to wear. Today. It needs to be ironed. Yeah. I iron that particular item. I wear it. So I'm a wear and go ironer. I am not a full laundry ironer. I can't do it.
No, because the thing about even pre-doing it, you're going to do it again.
Again, because you're going to fold them.
It's too much
I'm sorry,
work.
I'm not doing it. I told myself that ironing is a no from me. Okay. I hate ironing.
No, I feel you on that one because I also don't like it, and it's just like also the double chores. So I just fold and I'm like, okay, I make sure that it's neat and it's in there.
Put it
and
in.
when I need to use it, and I'll do it. The only thing I would actually iron, because it takes so much time, is a shirt. So I'd iron all my shirts so that, because I hang them, right? And then I don't have to like iron them a little bit later. But everything else, I'm not really bothered.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing any ironing. Ironing is definitely not for me. So I'm just like iron and go. That's it, because I hate it.
We've got this question on our X handle at Channel Africa 1, at Channel Africa 1. Visit us there. What household chores do you dislike the most? You can comment below there, or you can send us a voice note on +2763 406 9126. We want to hear from you. Hey, we're also going to have some other interesting conversations that are coming up on the show. A little bit steamy, this one that's coming up, and we're going to be speaking about hookup culture, casual relationships. They're increasingly becoming very normalized. They're very mainstream. Young adults, college-age populations seem to be the main populations that are actually very much loving hookups. And hookups is very, very casual. The thing about hookups, there's no responsibility to the relationship. There's no attachments that are involved, but there's almost a demand, whether it's a sexual demand, whether it's like we spend time together demand, or we go out together, or we're just gonna be there for each other when we need to be there. It looks different for different people, but these non-committal encounters offer freedom and exploration, but there are downsides to them, and one of the biggest one is increased sexual risk. Also the lack of emotional investment over time. Does that have implications as well? And also inconsistent sexual responsibilities in terms of the act itself, condom usage, the possibility of multiple partners, limited discussions around sexual health. So we're going to be speaking to Kenya-based research scientist at the African Population and Health Research Center, Dr. Anthony Ajayi, in the next few minutes. It's going to be an interesting one. What do you think about hookups? Remember, you can stay in touch with us on +2763 406 9126. +2763 406 9126. It's 1000 hours Central African time, 10 o'clock. Time for us to get the latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Looking at your top stories this hour, Ethiopia arrests dozens of suspected Islamic State militants, and Cuba Labour Minister forced to resign. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. Ethiopia has arrested dozens of suspected Islamic State militants who it claims have been trained and deployed to carry out operations across the country. National Intelligence Security Service says the 82 suspects were part of an Islamic State Somalia affiliate which operates in the semi-autonomous Puntland region. The Islamic State faction in Somalia has become an increasingly important part of its parent organization's worldwide network in recent years. With estimated 700 to 1,500 fighters, the Islamic State Somalia wing has grown in recent years thanks to an influx of foreign fighters and an increasing revenue. A joint meeting between the Portfolio Committee on Police and the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Constitutional Development in South Africa has gotten underway in Parliament. The committees have convened to discuss their strategy for investigating claims for corruption and political interference in the operations of the South African Police Service. The committee will review the allegations made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi against Police Minister Senzo Mchunu and other high-ranking police officials. President Cyril Ramaphosa has placed Mchunu on leave of absence, while the Deputy National Police Commissioner for Crime Detection, Shadrack Sibiya, has also been told to take a leave of absence following these allegations. The presidency says it is concerned about the Democratic Alliance's persistent campaign against South Africa's national interests and posture of trying to embarrass the country since the appointment of Mcebisi Jonas as the presidential special envoy in the U.S. presidency has cautioned the DA after it claimed that the U.S. rejected Jonas's credential and he is unable to perform his role. But the presidency says Special Envoy don't need to present diplomatic credentials to host countries in the way designated heads of missions or other diplomats are. Kailihle Kumalo elaborates.
The presidency has slammed the DA, saying it's seeking to sensationalize the issue in view of the U.S. pending trade tariffs announced by the U.S. President Donald Trump. It says Jonas's outreach does not in any way supersede the leading role of the trade industry and competition and DECO in the difficult but constructive trade negotiations with the U.S. It adds that the DA's position itself as part of the right-wing nexus that wants to use the foreign states to effect changes to democratically developed national policies in South Africa.
The World Health Organization and UNICEF say more than 14 million children remained completely unvaccinated in the year 2024. The two organizations have warned that widespread misinformation and severe international aid cuts are widening coverage gaps, putting millions of children at risk. They say in a joint report that in Europe and Central Asia, average childhood vaccination rates stagnated or fell by 1%. Dr. Paul Ngwakum, who is a regional health advisor for Eastern and Southern Africa at UNICEF.
There are several overlapping factors, and according to the report, in addition to misinformation and funding shortfalls, we have other things like geographical barriers. But you also have a bunch of children that live in conflict and security-affected areas. These are children on the move, children living in displaced communities. But the main thing is weak systems, the funding shortfalls. Funding shortfalls means we don't have enough resources to mobilize health workers, resources to procure the vaccines, resources to take them to where these children are.
Lastly, Cuba's Labor Minister Marta Fato has been forced to resign after she made comments in a parliamentary session denying the existence of burgers on the island. Fato said that those asking for money were in fact people in disguise looking for money to get drunk. The BBC's Will Grant reports.
Well, in essence, she was forced to resign after those comments. That obviously caused real ripples, not just on the island, but internationally too. The president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, then criticised her at the parliamentary session, albeit without mentioning her by name, saying that the leadership could not act with condescension towards Cubans or be disconnected from their realities. Now, people took that quite clearly as a barb towards her, and shortly thereafter, she resigned from her post, which was accepted by the Cuban Communist Party and the government.
Recapping on your top stories, Ethiopia has arrested dozens of suspected Islamic State militants who it claims have been trained and deployed to carry out operations across the country. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
It's 6 minutes past 10 Central Africa time. We're in the second hour of On the Move. And of course, you tuned in to Channel Africa. This is the right place to be if you are in search, constant search of that African perspective. And you are the most important part of this family. So do tap in and let everyone know to come through on www.channelafrica.co.za. On the SABC Plus app, you can download that on any app store. And of course, find Channel Africa there under the radio section. We also have our audio bouquets, DSTV channel 802 and OpenView HD channel 628. We continue with the conversations of the day here on The Move with myself, Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama. We're speaking today about hookup culture, which seems to really be increasing and normalized over recent years. And you know, sexual freedom is something that we speak about quite a lot, but there's still a lot of nuances around that, especially on the African continent, like culture and and tradition and religion, and how those society imposes certain thoughts about sex and sexuality on us. But the young people now, young adults, college-aged population are like, well, yeah, I see those norms, but we're going to do things a little bit differently, and we're actually not going to care what the norms have to say. So we're going to be speaking about that hookup culture, but also looking at its different nuances from, it's sometimes, being risky behavior, risky sexual behavior, but on the other hand can have empowerment aspects, especially when individuals who've been historically marginalized, like women, like persons with disabilities, etc., engage in casual sex on their own terms. We'll be speaking to Kenya-based research scientist at the African Population and Health Research Center, Dr. Anthony Ajayi, to help us unpack hookup culture on the continent in this hour of the show. So that's certainly a conversation to look forward to.
Yeah, we love all these conversations that are coming up. The thing about being casual is that it can feel empowering, and it can feel like, you are in control until you're not in control, because there are so many factors that you are not in control of, especially what the other person is doing on the other side. You'll never know what's actually going on there. So looking forward to that conversation of hookups, and it's an interesting one indeed. And also, we're going to be looking at this live well issue. Most of the time as men, we think menopause only affects women. But there's actually a male version of menopause, and we're going to be speaking about what is called andropause, which is the male menopause. It involves a gradual decline of testosterone in men and brings its own set of physical, emotional, and mental challenges. And that one, it's funny, we never speak about this. I've always heard about menopause, and there's a lot of conversations that are happening around menopause, as muted as they are, but I've never heard of andropause as a man at all. So that must be a very important conversation. We'll be speaking to Ronald Abavaji, who is the CEO of HL Consulting and is a well-being expert. And then we're also going to have a health expert by the name of Dr. Amawunyo Emmanuel Ati joining us for that Live Well in the next hour. Have you heard of that one, or are you curious? Give us your thoughts on our WhatsApp number, +27 63 469126. And hey, you can also give us your thoughts on our live stream. So many people coming in: Frank Mwana, Gibbs Nyirenda, Musire Momo, Charles Kelvin Lutanga. So many people on that live stream coming in and out. Thank you for joining us if you are there as well. Let's take a break. It's 10 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Nous allons à présent dérouler notre tapis rouge pour accueillir notre personnalité du jour, l'artiste chanteur Sheki Frey, qui est en ligne de Guinée avec nous.
Je suis un artiste guinéen, un créateur, un styliste, et je fais un peu ce qui plaît à mes fans. Voilà, c'est un peu ça. On a beaucoup de genres de trucs à faire, mais bon, pour le moment, on est basé un peu sur le rap.
D'accord. À quelle période de votre vie avez-vous commencé à vous intéresser à la musique, Sheki?
Bon, je crois pas qu'il y ait une période, parce que moi, je suis un mélomane depuis mon petit âge.
Annie Kalonji, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Zochitika ndimodapiri kamlondola wazochitika pena paliponse.
Nduna wazamalonda kumalawi aletsa kampani yopanga shuga ya Irovo yomwe ndi nthambi ya Irovo Sugar Group Limited kuti isiye kutumiza shuga kumaiko akunja. Malingana ndi nduna ya zamalonda Vitumbuko Mumba, izi zithandiza kuti shuga yemwe yakusowa pamsika azipezeka. Ndiye pano ndili ndi George Muhangu amene ali mu mzinda wa Blantyre mu dziko la Malawi. Chimene chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndi chani?
Chomwe chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndichonena kuti panopo ili ngati off season ya makampani a Irovo Sugar Malawi, kunena kuti sakutha kupanga shugayi okwanira chifukwa akukolola. Ndiye akamaliza kukolola pameneno atayambeno sopano kugaya shugayi kuti azipezeka. Chinanso ndichonena kuti ma distributors amene akumakagula shuga kaya ndi ku Irovo kaya ndi kusalima shuga akumagulisa kumaiko akunja ngati Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Mozambique.
Zochitika ndimodapiri lolemba mpaka lachisanu pa nthawi ya 7 koloko kufikira 8 koloko madzulo pa Channel Africa.
Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
In recent years, hook-up culture and casual relationships have become increasingly normalized, particularly amongst young adults and college-aged populations. While these non-committal encounters may offer freedom and exploration, they often come with significant downsides, and among them is increased sexual risk. And we know what the numbers of the HIV look like here on the African continent, and other sexual-related diseases, STIs, and so this is quite risky behavior. Well, can be seen as quite risky behavior. The lack of emotional investment, reduced communication, and spontaneous nature of hookups can also lead to inconsistent condom use, multiple partner, and limited discussions around sexual health. We're speaking about hookup culture, but not just from a one-sided perspective, because there's so many nuances to this particular culture and why it's taking place. On the other hand, hookup culture can also be empowerment for those who are previously or historically marginalized, like women, persons with disabilities, to engage in casual sex on their own terms, free from traditional and societal expectations or shame. We're speaking about the rise of hookup culture. On the line with us is Dr. Anthony Ajayi, Kenya-based research scientist at the African Population and Health Research Center. It's always a pleasure to have you, Dr. Ajayi. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now let's look at what we're talking about when we speak about hook-up culture or casual relationships. And I think it's not something that's just existing now. Maybe we're just speaking about it more openly and we've decreased the shame of speaking about hookups. But is it as new as we think it is?
Hookup culture, it's defined as casual sex as sort of committed relationship. It's definitely present. It's not new, but with the advancements in technology, like the dating apps, we are seeing more and more people practice hookup culture, I would say.
And why do you think this is? I mean, young people obviously could be in a space. I mean, if these happen particularly amongst young adults and college-age population, many of these are not, especially these days, when a lot of young people aren't looking to get married yet. They're still, trying to explore. They're looking out in the world. Maybe they just started entering the world of work. So a lot of different things are happening in the lives of young adults right now.
100%. People tend to speak about hookup culture with a moral lens, but it's also not about morality. It's about health and informed choice. There is no denying that people have greater freedom. People tend to delay marriage. And then the availability of digital platforms that make meeting new people easier. So for some, it's exploration, as you rightly point out. But for others, it's also about emotional or financial survivor. More often than not, these encounters happen without proper conversations about protection or testing, and that's where the risk might lie.
You were right to saying a lot of the times we have these conversations from a moral lens, and that's why these conversations happen, right? The reason why hookup culture or casual relationships are taboo is because they're seen as morally wrong in many of our African societies. Culturally, traditionally, you're seen as, and they're shunned upon, and those who participate in hookup culture are met with a lot of shame from people who are looking at them from a moral perspective. But what perspective should we be having a conversation like this from?
I think we should be having it from a nuanced perspective that recognize the autonomy of individual, the choices of individual, but also understand where they are in their growth, in their personal growth and development. For people who are young, who are delaying marriage because they want to empower themselves, they might feel the need to have nourishing and engaging relationship. And often not all those relationships will result into marriage. So it then means that the number of partners increase as a result of that. What should the focus should be is to support people, to prepare people to know that they are risk inherent in hookup culture, and that's important to get tested, just to be safe and to protect oneself. I think the public health side of it needs to also be considered when people make such decisions. Well, I think people should not see it as in a judgmental fashion, but rather they should understand that people have the right to make choices that they believe it's beneficial for them.
Absolutely. Well, one of the standout features, I guess, of a hookup or a casual relationship, it's how non-committal it is in nature. Now, let's look at that non-commitment, right? Because it's not just commitment of getting to see or getting to know that person. It's the lack of emotional investment and reduced communication that happens in that particular setting. But it's also quite, those people are actually looking for that. They're not looking to commit with that particular person. They're not looking to over communicate, and they might just also be looking for the fun nature of spontaneity that comes off those particular interactions. Why do you think more people are also going into that non-emotional part of hookup culture that doesn't really require a lot of investment or vested interest in the other person?
I think freedom, as I said previously, people have freedom of choice. We live in a democracy these days. Cultural police are not there to arrest people for decisions they make.
Yeah.
But I think generally it's an expression of freedom and an expression of choice. People feel the need to explore, especially young people, I would say, and who are not necessarily in a committed relationship or married at the point. They just feel like they want to date and see what's out there. And for me, what is key is to make sure that they are aware of both the pros and cons of what they do.
Yeah.
Because I've also seen research that shows that more than half of people that engage in hookup sex, for example, regretted it. So again, people need to be aware that there are risks associated with whatever decisions or choices they make. I think that's really important.
Well, we're going to take a break, Dr. Ajay, but I think we'll come back and actually speak about those pros and cons. And I'm glad we're looking at this conversation from a very nuanced perspective, where we're not the moral police saying young people are hooking up, this is bad, this is wrong. But we do have to, educate and understand what the pros and cons are, especially when it comes to increased sexual risk, but also what the empowerment perspectives are and where those come from. So stay on the line with us. We're speaking about the rise of hookup culture and casual relationships, and we'll be back with Dr. Anthony Ajay, who's a research scientist at the African Population and Health Research Center.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Keeping you on the know and on the move.
Something that was once frowned upon has now become a mainstream thing. We see it in the movies, we see it on TikTok, we see it in different scenarios, even in our own lives. That's hookup culture and casual relationships. To help us on this one is Kenya-based research scientist at the African Population and Health Research Center. That's Dr. Anthony Ajay. It's good to have you back on the show as we talk about hookup culture today. Let's look at that scenario, because I think we've touched on the positive elements of it. However, there's an element of mystery in hookup culture, especially when that person leaves you and now you left with the action itself. Whether did we utilize a condom? Did we actually partake in an activity where I feel emotionally safe? How do I feel about that experience of that sexual encounter? Did I feel that I was maybe abused to a certain extent? Because all those areas become blurred when there's an agreement. However, there might be not enough conversations that's detailed around the activity, especially when it comes to sexual activities.
Yes, and that's why the focus should be on agency, as well as the conversation should also be not judgmental. It should be youth-centered. Young people, even though they are expressing their freedom, should also know their rights.
Yeah.
And they should be able to discuss consent, for example. What am I consenting to?
Sure.
And what am I not consenting to? They should be able to have this conversation with their partner, whether it's a casual partner or an intimate partner. The communication is key, and consent is an important topic that needs to be discussed in such relationship. Because at the end of the day, people should feel that their rights are not violated. And if their rights are violated, they should know where to seek redress.
Yeah.
They should be able to ensure that their relationship is fulfilling and enduring. And all of these can be possible. Hookup culture itself is not inherently bad. But people need to make decisions for their own benefit and shouldn't do things that crosses the boundary, for example, for themselves. So I think that's where the line needs to be drawn. Protection is also important. They need to protect themselves. It's important to use condoms in such casual relationships because you might not know the status of the person you are hooking up with. And it's important not to put yourself at risk when you meet a new partner. I think it's important to take caution, for sure.
And let's talk a little bit about also the emotional attachments that might develop over a period of time. Maybe a hookup is happening sporadically over a long period of time, and you feel like, you know what, emotionally I'm invested here, and the other person might not feel the same way as I feel here. Any advice there?
That's also one of the risks, right? The emotional risk.
Yeah.
When you hook up with someone that you consider to be someone you would be willing to now engage in a committed relationship with. And starting with a hookup sort of relationship might make that progression difficult. But it could also progress as well. But everything, needs to be discussed for sure. And you don't need to continue. If you feel like you're emotionally invested, you need to have that conversation for with a partner.
And also, we didn't talk about the fact that you could have been having hookups with multiple persons. I think people do that more regularly than we believe. What kind of precautions should you take there? Or are we going back to actually protection? Sexual protection is important there. But, things can get even more complicated there in terms of the relationships where jealousy develops and you start getting stalked. When the other person finds out, they could feel, they can actually violate you even further. You never know some of the outcomes of that because it's still relational, all these things that are happening here.
Yeah, it's important, and I'm glad that you highlighted all these risks because these are inherent risks associated with hookup culture, for sure. People get emotionally attached, they begin to stalk you even when you want to put a stop to it. But I think it's important that we listen to all the warning that we see as a result of that. If you feel like you're being stalked, you need to take precaution. You need to probably report to the police so that you are safe. I think it's really important. But that's certainly one of the risks associated with hookup culture, for sure.
And then the multiple hookups dynamics, what's your take on that one? Because that also makes things more dangerous, especially when it comes to if the sexual relationship is constant with both parties. And should you disclose to both parties that, hey, I am not having a hookup with only you, I'm actually hooking up with other people. Are you hooking up with other people? Should that conversation happen just for a sense of transparency?
Yeah, transparency is important. Where things get messy is when people feel like you're taking advantage of them or you're, lying to them or lying to them, for example. So it's important that you're a bit transparent on where you are in your relationship journey and what you want. You shouldn't, come under pretense that you want a committed relationship, whereas what you want is a hookup. So if you are transparent and you communicate, then you'll be able to prevent some of this risk as well. But if you come under guise of making promises that you're unable to fulfill, then it becomes dangerous for sure.
And as we wrap things up, I'm interested in just how also the hookup happens, this situationally, because I think there are responsibilities there, because some people hook up with someone at a club, and from that club environment, maybe they both are drunk, they go to someone's house and then they sleep together, wake up in the morning and say, hey, you took advantage of me, what's going on? So some people think that's the hookup. That's the only way you can have a hookup, right? Some people just meet someone randomly on a social media platform, on a Tinder. They meet, they have sex initially on their first meet up. I don't know if those two examples are responsible ones. So people should actually take more care of even how they meet with these people that they have hookups with.
No, you are correct. It's important to do a bit of background check on people you are hooking up with. The two cases or scenario you described may not allow for that because you just meet a random person in a club. You know virtually nothing about the person. You don't know their history. It is just dangerous. I've seen people share experience of hooking up with someone in that situation, and then the person ended up robbing them, stealing all the things in their house, So when you bring a stranger to your home, there are risks associated with that. So those are probably not the ideal way to do that. I think it's important to do a bit of background check on anyone you're hooking up with, just to know who they are and just to be safe.
Yeah. And also the location is important. Where you meet up for the first time, I think those ground rules are important. Let's meet up. Let's get to know each other a little bit. Hooking up doesn't mean that we are complete strangers, right, Doctor?
Yes. It shouldn't mean that you're complete strangers and then you escalate in the first instance. I think even getting to know someone might just make the engagement even more interesting as opposed to someone you don't know at all. You get to discuss preferences, you get to discuss consent and all of this before you escalate things.
Yeah, because some people say, man, you're making it boring now. Now I must meet this person for coffee and then we must discuss what we are doing. But I think that's so important just for the connection, but also more importantly for you to stay protected and safe.
Yes, it's important to stay safe. And we've touched on all the risks that could happen. And that's why it's important to do all of this. It's not boring to get to know someone and talk to someone because the risk. Yeah, and I know people love taking risks.
Yeah,
but it's important to also be very cautious and not take unnecessary risk. The risk-taking people will say, "No, you are taking the fun out of it," but it's important to be safe and not just put yourself in a very dangerous situation.
Well, Dr. Ajayi, thank you so much for helping us on this one. We always love your commentary on such issues, and it's always helpful to get an expert perspective on such life matters.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, that's Kenya-based research scientist at the African Population and Health Research Center, Dr. Anthony Ajayi. Well, that conversation takes us to 10:30 Central African Time. Musiburi Makura joins us now, and she's going to let us know what's happening in sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And a very good morning from the sports desk. We'll start with rugby news. The Springboks will not appeal the suspension of Jasper Wiese and have accepted that he will miss the next 4 test matches. Wiese's hearing took place on Tuesday morning following a red card he received for an incident that occurred in the 20th minute of the match against Italy at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in Gqeberha last weekend. Now, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus told reporters that he was comfortable with the hearing process and also felt the suspension Wiese received was fair. World Rugby announced that the 29-year-old received a 4-match suspension following the disciplinary hearing. The ban rules him out of the closing incoming series match against Georgia in Nelspruit in South Africa's Mpumalanga province this coming Saturday, as well as the first 3 Rugby Championship test matches against Australia in Johannesburg and Cape Town respectively on the 16th and the 23rd of August, and then the first game against New Zealand in Auckland on the 6th of September. Still on rugby news, South Africa's junior Springbok coach Kevin Foot has credited their hard work as well as defence after the South Africans beat Argentina on Monday night to book their place in Saturday's World Rugby Under-20 Championship final against their nemesis New Zealand. Now, the junior Boks scored 6 tries to 3 in a 48-24 semi-final victory, 4 of those in the first half, for a 28-10 lead at the half-time break, but were made, though, to work very hard on defence in the second period by a resolute Argentinian side who came storming back through their forwards and a rampant rolling maul in the second half. Now, the junior Boks quickly raced into a 28-3 lead and also took firm control of the match, but Argentina dug deep and gave themselves hope just before the half-time break with the first try of the match. This is what Kevin Foot, the coach of the South African under-20 team, had to say after that match.
Hi, Nigel. Definitely. Look, I think that was a very challenging match. The conditions are quite tough here with the humidity and obviously a very physical game against Argentina. So I think that the guys have really built a lot of confidence through the championship and now into the Rugby World Cup. So there's definitely a lot of belief in the guys. They're a very humble team, but we are truly, truly full of belief and confidence.
Now, Saturday's final between the junior Boks as well as New Zealand in Rovego will kick off at 8:30 p.m. Central African time. Coach Foot says the players know what is at stake.
It's our leadership group that sets the tone, and it's just the whole group in general. If I'm honest, I think there's such a humble group. They just want to play so hard for the country. We know how hard we've worked building into this World Cup and just what it'll mean to all of us. And you know, for Springbok Rugby and for our country. So I've never ever had an issue with any of our players around not staying grounded. They're a very humble bunch and they're all desperate to do well come Saturday.
On to the story now. The Los Angeles 2028 Olympic organisers have slated matches at the Olympic cricket tournament to start at 9 a.m. in the morning to cater for lucrative television audiences in India. So one of the major factors behind cricket's return to the Games after a 128-year hiatus is a desire of the International Olympic Committee to tap into a lucrative South Asian media rights as well as sponsorship market. The 6-team T20 tournament featuring both men as well as women teams will begin on Wednesday, the 12th of July, 2 days before the opening ceremony, with all matches staged at a venue which will be constructed at the fairgrounds in Pomona. Now, there will also be 2 games played daily in Pomona, located about 30 miles from the Athletes Village in Los Angeles, starting at 9 a.m. in the morning until 6:30 p.m. in the evening. That would be your Pacific Daylight Time. And finally, in case you missed it, British tennis player Tara Moore has been banned for 4 years for a doping offence despite being cleared by an independent tribunal 18 months ago. An appeal by the International Tennis Integrity Agency, the ITIA, has upheld by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. The 4-year ban starts immediately but will be reduced to 19 months. Moore was provisionally suspended when the case first came to light. The 32-year-old was Britain's top-ranked women's doubles player when she was provisionally banned in May of 2022, having tested positive for nandrolone as well as boldenone at a tournament in the Colombian capital Bogotá the previous month. But in December of 2023, an independent tribunal ruled contaminated meat was the source of the positive test and that Moore bore no fault or negligence. The British player also says she suffered 19 months of lost time and emotional distress and that her reputation had been damaged by the result of this case. She returned to tour in April of 2024 and also played mostly in the ITF World Tour since. Earnings, by the way, for double players are meager as opposed to what single players get. And of course, she's set to return to the season in the 2028 season. And that's a wrap from the Sports Desk at this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. This Mandela Month, Channel Africa invites you to walk in the footsteps of a giant. From the prison yard of Robben Island to the halls of the United Nations. Nelson Mandela's legacy reminds us that service, compassion, and justice are the building blocks of real freedom.
En cette journée Mandela, que nos actions fassent écho à son héritage.
Alionyesha dunia ya kwamba sauti moja yaweza kuhamasisha mataifa.
Mandela ensinou-nos que a liberdade não é dada, mas sim conquistada através da coragem e sacrifício.
Join us as we reflect, remember, and reignite the spirit of Madiba across the continent. This is more than a day. It's a call to action. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Hey, we're looking forward to Mandela Day there. We're going to have a special broadcast a little bit later in the week, I think on a Friday. So we'll let you know a little bit later what's going to be happening there. But right now, let's move on and get our latest business news from Buntle Headbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Benjamin, and a very good morning to our listeners. In our top business story at this hour, Egypt plans to launch a revamped national commodity exchange to oversee imports and exports of essential agricultural goods. This as the country strives to secure consistent supplies and keep prices steady. In a statement, the presidency said the exchange, in which the military-linked Future of Egypt for Sustainable Development has a majority stake, will act as a safety valve for local markets and balance the interests of producers and consumers. While the statement did not say which goods would be traded through the exchange, a preliminary announcement in March said it would oversee crops, processed foods, animal feed, fertilizers, pesticides, and veterinary medicines. South Africa's Transport Minister Barbara Creecy has dissolved the Road Accident Fund Board due to persistent governance and operational challenges. She says the challenges have significantly impacted the RAF's ability to fulfill its mandate and include costly litigation over accounting standards, inconsistent handling of the CEO's suspension, frequent default judgments, deep divisions within the board, and failure to fill critical executive positions. The department's Colin Sibi says this decision aims to address these issues and improve the RAF's effectiveness.
Minister Creecy has reiterated the department's commitment to continue to pursue all necessary measures to restore institutional stability and enhance the RAF's capacity to fulfill its statutory obligations to the public and ensure a speedy and equitable access to the road accident benefit scheme by the road accident victims. She further emphasized her department's intention to finalize the road accident benefit scheme bill, which will introduce a no-fault system to make it easier for road accident victims.
Senegal's finance ministry says the country has raised $644 million in its second public bond offering of 2025, exceeding its initial target of just over $530 million. The issuance, which ran from the 19th of June to the 8th of July, forms part of the government's broader strategy to diversify budget financing sources, deepen the domestic capital market, and manage public debt. Senegal has seen mounting concerns about its debt levels. Its international bonds have lost roughly a quarter of their value since revealing in September it had what analysts estimated as up to $14 billion of previously undisclosed debt. The International Monetary Fund has warned Ethiopia that its reform agenda under a $3.4 billion loan deal is facing challenges from declining donor support. This is despite the country meeting its key program targets. The IMF says although the country has implemented notable economic adjustments, rising risks such as a resurgent parallel foreign exchange market and fragile security conditions could hinder progress and complicate debt restructuring efforts. U.S. legislation to cut more than $9 billion in foreign aid and funding for public broadcasting is expected to allow for an amendment that would exempt cuts to PEPFAR. PEPFAR stands for the President's Emergency Plans for Aid Relief. The director for the White House Office of Management and Budget, Russ Vought, told reporters that they were on board with excluding PEPFAR funding from the rescission legislation. Sherwin Bryce Peace reports that the legislation already passed the House of Representatives in June.
The White House and Senate Republicans have indicated that they would support an amendment to remove a $400 million cut to PEPFAR funding in the rescission legislation package that seeks cuts in excess of $9 billion to the Department of State, the U.S. Agency for Development, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds media platforms like NPR and PBS. The Senate is expected to begin voting on the rescission legislation Tuesday.
And now we take a look at the indicators. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,529 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 24. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 58. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 5. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 56. Russia, 78 rubles and 1. India, it's 85 rupees 90. China, 7 yuan 17. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 86 cents. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,333 per ounce and platinum at $1,403 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $68.88 a barrel. And those are your business news. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459 for Channel Africa Business. I am Buntle Hetbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Kodi mumadziwa bwino kuwerenga ndi kuyankhula Chinyanja? Mumakonda ntchito ya wireless? Mumafuna mutagwira ntchito m'dziko la South Africa? Nanga muli ndi mapepala okulolezani kugwira ntchito mu South Africa? Ngati muli ndi yankho la zonsezi, ndiye kuti muli ndi mwayi ogwira ntchito kuno ku Channel Africa. Tumizani CV yanu ndi mawu anu kuno ku Channel Africa ku email ya newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Chonde ngati simunalandire uthenga kuchokera ku Channel Africa nyengo ya masiku 14 14 pambuyo potumiza CV yanu, ndiye kuti simunasankhidwe. Channel Africa, kalilole wa Africa.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus, anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun, this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palesa and Benjamin.
I, of course, work with the wonderful Tebogo Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here. So join us.
Any money where I get, I dey flex, I dey ball, I dey vest, I dey show, Patek, she see fly ball in the jet. My baby, my bed, she na pussycat. See back, see the yan, 3 pass, maybe that. She go wine and well when she see the cash. Cash, 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 cash,
1 p.m. and 4 p.m.
cash. She go wine and well when she see the cash.
Hey guys, Tebogo Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Lifestyle, news, and music and opinion. So catch us on air. I always work with the wonderful Tebogo, and we are very happy to be here. So join us.
see the cash. If I hide the money, she go see the cash. Bend down well when you see the cash.
Hey guys, Debo Konakule here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon show.
Lifestyle, news, views, and opinion. Catch us on AI with the one and we are very happy to be
Future. Africa is a story, a living.
Dr. Tariko, Joey B, that one is Patek, taking us to 47 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. Hey, we've got some voice notes from some of you that have been giving us your thoughts on household chores. I was asking earlier on, what are your worst household chores? Let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I don't like dishes. I don't do dishes. I like cleaning. I prefer cleaning. I don't like cleaning, but I prefer cleaning. So dishes, no. Cleaning, yes.
Yeah, we're not alone. But
Yeah, the dishes thing is a serious one.
I don't mind cooking, but no other chore. I don't enjoy any other household chore.
Okay.
Because I feel like I work too hard. So the cooking is enough.
Yeah, the last one is me, you know, tidying up in the kitchen when you've, and I make so much like mess, you know. It's
Yeah.
only recently where I'm trying to be like, while you are cooking, clean up, you know,
Yes.
follow after yourself.
Yeah.
After you've chopped something,
You must
throw it in the
and
bin.
that's the thing. When I grew up, my parents would always say I'm like the laziest in my household,
Yeah.
right? But now, as an adult, I have like the neatest place because I cook almost every day,
Okay.
and that system is a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Doing things immediately stops from the build up, and once there's build up, you look at it and you're like, I don't
wanna
really want
get
to do
involved.
it, right? So before I start cooking, I open the sink, I get some hot water in there with some soap.
Yeah.
And so as I'm, cooking, I'm taking like a towel and I'm, wiping the surfaces with the hot water. If there's particular things that I use during the cooking process, I clean them and I wash them immediately so that when I'm done cooking,
Yeah.
the food is done, but the kitchen is spotless and I don't have an extra chore to do being cleaning the kitchen.
All right, give us your thoughts on that one on our WhatsApp number +2763 406 9126. We'd like to hear from you. Well, we're going to have our TikTok feature coming up. We're going to be looking at some trends that are happening on TikTok. Palesa will let us know. I know we did a TikTok challenge in our office, so it's been going well on social media. I want to hear from Palesa what she has for us today after this break.
Have you been struggling to find Channel Africa?
Oh yes, where can I find you guys?
Well, you are in luck.
Warning, radioactive zone detected.
Listen to the African perspective on our brand new SABC Plus app. Download the fresh and easy to use app from sabcplus.com or the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Or just command your phone to find SABC Plus on your phone and check out all this good stuff. And that's where you will find Channel Africa, the African perspective. Oh yes, this is fresh and easy. On the move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday. Only on Channel Africa. #On the move.
It's time to look at what's been trending on the socials. And something has been trending, in fact, on our own socials, on the Channel Africa socials. It's a trend that's been making waves pretty much everywhere on TikTok, right? And I know we have nice workplace features here on the show. Yesterday we had one. But one thing about the workplace as well is how people dress. It's part of how we perceive people, isn't it? Especially in the office. So how they dress, some people love to dress up in the office, some people like to dress down. And what we actually don't notice is a big part that can make a statement about who you are, how we perceive in the statement, is the pair of shoes that you're wearing. So people on social media have been looking at the shoes of their colleagues and imagining what sound or music would describe that pair of shoes.
Yeah, people are saying on social media, I love this one because I saw this one on TikTok. It's one of the few things I've seen, and I really love it. Some people say, what song would your colleague's shoe sing?
Yeah, if they could sing. And especially
if the shoe could sing.
If the shoe could sing, what could it sing? And also if you could add a sound, because TikTok is also a lot about sounds. So sounds that people have made before. You're like, this sound sounds like the pair of shoes that you are wearing. So we did the same thing here on Channel Africa yesterday. We had a little clip of some of the shoes and the sounds or music that they make. Check this out, and if you can pinpoint what kind of shoes, or imagine what kind of shoes this would be,
you need to use your imagination, on what shoe associated with what song.
But you don't always have to use your imagination. Go to our platforms at Channel Africa 1 and you'll be able to see that video on our TikTok handle and on our Instagram. But listen to this.
I wonder what shoe this one is.
Oh goodness. Sounds like a pair you would wear at a funeral.
This must be a good shoe. Well, very interesting. I have to actually say what shoe that one song was. And everyone was kind of commenting on that one. And the one that stood out was the Amatuneni song.
Yes.
Which is like a burial song. That song is trending on TikTok when you're doing something very dangerous or something that's going to make you die or something that's just weird.
Yes. Yeah. They play that song because it's a funeral song that we play in South Africa. Directly translated, it just means that I'll see you at the burial or I'll see you at the funeral. So Ben was like, that must be a good pair. And just because he says that that was my his
shoe.
Pair of shoes.
But I got a cool song.
You did get a cool song. That was a cool pair of shoes. And I was happy with that because
you have
yesterday
the same shoe,
we were wearing the same pair of shoes. So I'm like, okay, good.
So a lot of people have been saying such cool things. Sanda Peta was not in Kalagata for me. This is so cool though. Because she was wearing an all-star. And I think Kalagata goes with an all-star.
100%.
Yeah. And Puleng Mulibatu, who's our colleague, says she loves this collage. And also we had so many people who were saying Aguseko nestileto nyana. That's Miss Villa.
Nobody's even wearing a stiletto in this office. And actually, I'm looking around. I see not a single stiletto here.
Yeah, no, we are journalists, so we're always walking up and down, and we have to be practical about the workplace. But if you want to check it out, that video, check it out on our TikTok, and remember the magic handle at Channel Africa 1 at Channel Africa 1. Check out that video on TikTok.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week.
Kodi mumadziwa bwino kuwerenga ndi kuyankhula chinyanja? Mumakonda ntchito ya wireless? Mumafuna mutagwira ntchito m'dziko la South Africa? Nanga muli ndi mapepala okulolezani kugwira ntchito mu South Africa? Ngati muli ndi yankho la zonsezi, ndiye kuti muli ndi mwayi ogwira ntchito kuno ku Channel Africa. Tumizani CV yanu ndi mawu anu kuno ku Channel Africa ku email ya newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Chonde ngati simunalandire uthenga kuchokera ku Channel Africa nyengo ya masiku 14 14 pambuyo potumiza CV yanu, ndiye kuti simunasankhidwe. Channel Africa, kalilole wa Africa.
9 to 12 midday Central African Time. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
It's 56 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African Time. You're listening to On the Move. You can listen to us in multiple ways. DSTV channel 802 is the audio bouquet. Also on OpenView 628 is another audio bouquet that you can find us on. And you can stream us on our website. Our website has so many delicious things. You can look at what's going on the African continent. content and get the latest updates. We've got a digital team that you might not see on air, but they're corresponding with our news department. So everything that you're hearing in our news, you can actually find on our website, but you'll get the full context of some of the big stories that we have in our news headlines. So go to our website, www.channelafrica.co.za. Don't be shy to go there. You'll find all our different news there. And don't forget Peter Ndoro's The Conversation. He always has an updated conversation about different themes of what's happening here on the African continent. There's a lot of things that we need to get over. There's a lot of challenges that we need to deal with, but there's also a lot of promise on the African continent. And I love that the podcast that Peter does has that general feeling that, you know what, we've got so much that we need to jump over. We need to leapfrog some of these things that are challenges here on the African continent, but we can definitely do something in regards of fulfilling some of the potential that we have here on the African continent. So you can find the conversation there on our website. Also, it is housed in our SABC Plus app platform. So get the SABC Plus app. It is definitely a fantastic app where you can get all Channel Africa content, but it's yummy because you can get that particular podcast right there easily on your mobile phone or also on your desktop. So go online and check out all these things that are happening here at Channel Africa. We make sure that we correct the narrative about the African continent, that no, it's not a land of just burdens and poverty. There's so much potential here on the African continent. So don't forget www.channelafrica.co.za. Go there and check out our live streams. Go check out the podcast, but also download the SABC Plus app and you can find our content there, especially that podcast that's headed by Peter Ndoro, a wonderful one there, and always different people who are part of that. Some of the podcasts you have these days, there's two voices all the time, or the same voice or the same subject matter, but there you get really an investigation of what's happening here on the African continent. Well, we're about to move on to our third hour of the show, and that is when we have our Live Well feature. Living well is not an easy thing, especially when it comes to health issues. You only find out about something when you get diagnosed. Like, you've got this. This happened to me. I'm like, I've got hypertension. What is hypertension? How did I get it? When? How? Who? I'm like, no. But I go for checkups. But it just, some things just arrive and they just become this big stress. But it's good to speak about health issues, right? Because then like, you know what? I've heard about this. Someone told me about this. And now I know how to treat it and what's caused it before I actually felt it in my life. So today we're going to be speaking about something that most of us have never heard before. Menopause version for men. It's like something we've never heard. It's called andropause. So we'll learn a little bit about that after our news update. Let's find out what Onela Ntsintsi has for us. She's been standing by to give us our final news update for the morning.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Looking at your top stories, demands to deal with issues of national security in South Africa, and Cuba's labor minister is forced to resign. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. Parliament's Police and Justice and the Constitutional Development Portfolio Committees in South Africa have just over a week to come up with a plan on how to deal with issues of national security. The two committees, as well as the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, were directed by the Speaker of National Assembly, Togo to consider on an urgent basis revelations by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi alleged Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who has been placed on special leave, is affiliated to persons linked to criminal activities. Mkhwanazi also alleged that top police officers are involved in criminal activities. The co-chairperson of the committee, Ian Cameron, explains what the two committees must achieve before the deadline of July the 23rd.
The joint report must be submitted to the House by no later than 23 July 2025. It must contain 3 things. 1, a summary of findings. 2, recommendations for further action. And 3, any proposals the committees consider appropriate for the expeditious resolution of the matter.
Meanwhile, South Africa's incoming acting police minister, Professor Feroz Kachalia, says he will approach his assignment with an open mind. He says part of his work as a police minister will be to focus on the effectiveness of crime intelligence as well as the political killings task team at the center of allegations made by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. This as Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, Gwede Mantashe, has been appointed as the acting police minister by President Cyril Ramaphosa with immediate effect. Mantashe will serve until Kachalia assumes the position in an acting capacity from the 1st of August. Kachalia says he will set his key priorities once he has met with the National Commissioner of Police.
I do not want to make any pronouncements on this matter now because I haven't had an opportunity yet to meet with the National Commissioner. I think that I need to do that before I come to any firm conclusions in engaging with him. I hope it can be a joint decision, but certainly the questions about that particular unit and why it was dismantled, whether there were good reasons or not. And of course the question will arise whether or not it should be reinstated. But I don't have an informed opinion on that matter at this point.
The United States has started deporting migrants to countries other than their home nations with as little as 6 hours' notice. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement will generally wait at least 24 hours to deport someone after informing them of their removal to a so-called third country. The country yesterday deported what it described as 5 illegal criminal aliens to the Southern African Kingdom of Eswatini. In a statement on social media, the Department of Homeland Security said they were being sent to the Southern African nation because their own countries had refused to take them back. They've been convicted of various crimes, including murder and child rape. The World Health Organization and UNICEF say more than 14 million children remained completely unvaccinated in the year 2024. The two organizations have warned that widespread misinformation and severe international aid cuts are widening coverage gaps, putting millions of children at risk. They say in a joint report that Europe and Central Asia average childhood vaccination rates stagnated or fell by 1%. Dr. Paul Ngwakum, who's a regional health advisor for Eastern and Southern Africa at UNICEF, explains.
There are several overlapping factors, and according to the report, in addition to misinformation and funding shortfalls, we have other things like geographical barriers. But you also have a bunch of children that live in conflict and security-affected areas. These are children on the move, children living in displaced communities. But the main thing is weak systems and the funding shortfalls. Funding shortfalls means we don't have enough resources to mobilize health workers, resources to procure the vaccines, resources to take them to where these children are.
Lastly, Cuba's Labor Minister Marta Feito has been forced to resign after she made comments in a parliamentary session denying the existence of beggars on the island. Feito said that those asking for money were in fact people in disguise looking for money to get drunk. The BBC's Will Grant reports.
Well, in essence, she was forced to resign after those comments that obviously caused real ripples, not just on the island, but internationally too. The president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, then criticised her at the parliamentary session, albeit without mentioning her by name, saying that the leadership could not act with condescension towards Cubans or be disconnected from their realities. Now, people took that quite clearly as a barb towards her, and shortly thereafter, she resigned from her post, which was accepted by the Cuban Communist Party and the government.
Recapping on your top stories, Parliament's Police and Justice and Constitutional Development Portfolio Committees in South Africa have just over a week to come up with a plan on how to deal with issues of national security. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. the African perspective.
7 minutes past 11 o'clock Central African time. Thank you, Onel Nzinzi, for that update. Onel Nzinzi is not alone on our news desk. She comes with a fantastic woman-led news team. We have Musibudi Makura on our sports. We'll have our final sports update for the morning at around 11:30. And then we've got Buntle Headbush, who's going to give us our business news thereafter, making sure that we're updated right here on the African continent and we know what's happening each and every single day right here in Johannesburg, where we are broadcasting to the continent. Well, thank you to Mwiza Chimaliro, thank you to Bright Mkwanazi, just a few of those who are coming into our live stream. We see you, we love having you in this particular room. We don't take you for granted at all, so thank you for joining us. If you like, Ben, what are you talking about? What is this live stream that you're always making reference to? Who are these people? Actually, these are people watching us on our Facebook page. Our Facebook page is simply Channel Africa. Just search for Channel Africa and follow us there. Of course, you must make sure you like the Channel Africa with our logo, our verified account, and make sure that you can actually just go into that live stream there. It's easy. You'll find it very easily on our profile. You just click on our profile and you get into our studio magically and see what's happening in our studios. That live stream is also important because you can actually visualize what's happening, not just in our studio, but also you can see our guests, because we zoom into our guests and wherever they are on the African continent as we have these conversations.
Absolutely. So you can join in. In fact, you are the most important voice here. Let's keep them coming. We still want to find out what the chores that you hate doing are and how you've sort of figured out to, delegate the chores in your household. Let us know at Channel Africa 1. We're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. We are Channel Africa on Facebook and at Channel Africa 1 on the rest of our platforms. And of course, you can go into the stream, see what we're up to here in the studios, and leave us a comment. Comment on the conversations of the day, or just let us know where you are tuned in from. We always love to know where you are from. It's 9 minutes past 11 Central Africa time. We're going into the final hour of the show and our Live Well feature.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege.
So when you think of African music, you think of Kwasa Kwasa, high life music from West Africa, Afrobeat from West Africa, of gospel music or faith music or spiritual music. But when we think of reggae music, we go to the Caribbean, and if it's Africa, we only think about Lucky Dube. Well, I'm here to introduce you to some reggae music from Africa. Salif Keita with Dakan Faye from Mali. And I must say, this one was a real shock for me because I never had imagined Salif Keita on a reggae beat. But listening to him, it just proved to me how versatile he is as an artist, because you'd be expecting him to be on that vibe of West Africa, of ballads. But he really proved that he is very versatile, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege. This Mandela Month, we honor his belief that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world.
Education is one of the most important weapons in a country.
Catch us on DSTV Bouquet 802. Hashtag on the move and connect with us.
11 minutes past 11 o'clock Central African time. That sounded like a magical moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
11 minutes
it's
after
11.
Well, let's get into our Live Well conversation today. Last week, we had a very insightful, informative conversation around menopause, its symptoms and impact. And the guest that we had during that interview was like, actually, there is a male version of menopause. I was like, what? Are you sure? Why am I finding out about this at the age of 40?
Because
I should have known
you
this.
very well could have been.
I could have been experiencing menopause at 35. You never know. But this is an interesting one. I think many who are listening, many guys on the African continent could say the same thing like, Ben, we don't know that there is a male version of menopause. Well, it's called andropause, and it involves a gradual decline of testosterone in men and brings its own set of physical, emotional, and mental challenges. We are exploring andropause today, what it really is, how it affects men, and how we can manage it. We joined on the line by Ronald Abvaji, CEO of HL Consulting and Well-Being Expert. And we also have Dr. Mawungo Emmanuel Ati, who is a specialist obstetrician and gynecologist. Well, thank you both, Ronald. Thank you, Dr. Ati, for joining us. And this is going to be an interesting one. Let me start with you, Dr. Ati. How come we don't know anything about andropause? Why am I only finding out about this now?
Well, unfortunately, most men, as the world have it, we take things in silence. We don't talk much about issues, and therefore it's not something that's gets brought to the fore often. Most of the time, it's presents itself or masked in a certain way, and we only find or discover that once you start seeking medical help. That we're like, hey, hold on. Actually, this could be the reason. So unfortunately, not everyone presents it. Most people, when it does come, it becomes very worrisome and what we may call midlife crisis, because it's around the same time when things start changing, the age 40. So that's most of the time the mark where we start noticing differences in our behaviors. And unfortunately, it's not as popular as menopause. Okay. And we also go around discussing most of our issues as men. Unlike a woman will tell you, hey, now I'm feeling hot. The guy will just switch on the aircon quietly and sit in their corner, you know? So that's why we are here today.
Okay, before I go to Ronald, Dr. Ati, could you describe what andropause is? Give us a technical meaning of it so we understand it, because this is being introduced to many of us.
All right, no, thank you for that. So basically, andropause, it's a state in a man's life where we have a gradual decrease in our main functioning hormone. And for men, we mostly talk about testosterone. We have testosterone, which plays a much fundamental role in most of the time our sexual characteristics or our sexual behaviors. But it also has a role in the general function of the body. So in men, once we start turning the age of 30, we start having this gradual decline in the testosterone level. Ours is not as abrupt as the female, which is the menopause. So our symptoms may not come on, like it will not hit you like when you walk out of a cold.
Are you there, Dr. Ati? Dr. Ati, are you there? Okay, I've lost Dr. Ati a little bit. Let's see if we have our other guest on the line, Ronald. Ronald, are you there?
I am. Dr. Ati experienced Zoom on pause.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that happens sometimes. It's a Zoom pause, not a menopause or an andropause. Well, Ronald, maybe you could continue where Dr. Ati left off.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So in essence, andropause, many people associate it, and I love what Dr. Ati mentioned, it's the male hormone, which is testosterone. And because it's in higher concentrations in men than women, it's got a higher impact in men. So if you think about it, he used the phrase midlife crisis. We can think about it as a midlife chemical shift. because you need to do a hormone panel to low libido, erectile dysfunction, fatigue, and poor concentration. It's linked to irritability, anxiety, or even depression, and increasing the risk thereof. Decreased muscle mass, increased, in South Africa, we call it or increase in body fat, sleep disturbance, especially insomnia, and a reduced sense of purpose and motivation. So there's a lot of questioning that then happens. Those are some of the key symptoms that we look out for when it comes to andropause.
Okay, I want us to look at that because you highlighted so many different dynamics, right, that feel like normal emotional occurrences in anyone, like the fact that you have a lot of weight gain during that period. I noticed like there was a point in my life where I was like, I can't just eat anything anymore because the weight gain is just so extreme. What I used to eat in my 20s, what I started eating the same stuff in my 30s, the body was like, no, wait a little bit. We're actually going to gain weight here. So how do you notice these things? Because it feels like it's the same as menopause, that some of these things feel like naturally they're supposed to happen to your body and you won't even pin them down to one simple thing like menopause or andropause.
Absolutely. So, there's multiple symptoms associated to this. Now, we do know that menopause that impacts women has got over 100 signs and symptoms. So it's so varied and shows up differently in women and very similarly in men. There's not a lot of... there's not such a vast range of signs and symptoms. So we are aware that, what we label as midlife crisis. So you start questioning yourself, you start looking at, when I was younger. So it's thought patterns and physiological patterns. And coupled with that, you mentioned weight gain and so forth. That's also to do with our metabolic health, because as we age, we know that our muscle mass decreases. We also know that, our metabolism changes. And we also know that our bodies are going through changes in different decades. And when we look specifically at andropause, and I see Dr. Ati's back and he could share more light on this. When we look at the physiological changes that we go through, the reality is that men and women go through hormonal changes, but in men it is not spoken about as much, and there's a lot more research going into it. It's not as public. So very similarly, I'll draw an analogy for you. If you say breast cancer, the majority of people think it affects women, but you don't realize that a lot of men die from breast cancer because we can also be impacted. But because we perceive it to be an issue that mainly impacts women, we don't do self-examinations. So it metastasizes a lot more as a cancer, and we do deal with a lot more deaths associated with it. The same thing with andropause. Not to say you're going to die, but to say that when we become as men aware and flip conversations around a braai into being safe spaces of conversation, we begin to contextualize that we are not alone in going through these life, physiological, and mental health changes that's all initiated by a decrease in testosterone.
Well, okay, we'll take a little bit of a break and come back to you, James, on this one. We're speaking to Ronald Abvaji, who is a CEO of HL Consulting and Wellbeing Expert. We also have Dr. Mayunyo Emmanuel Ati, who is a specialist obstetrician and gynecologist. We're speaking about the male version of menopause. It's called andropause. And what's your take on this one? Maybe you, like me, turning 40 and you're like, this is happening to us too. Maybe it's kind of an alarming thing for you. Give us your thoughts on our WhatsApp number +27 6346 9126.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix.
Anaitwa Daniel Etienne Benson. Huyu alizaliwa mwaka 1997, ilikuwa Mei 14, na anajulikana kitaalamu kabisa kwa jina la muziki BNXN. Haya, ni mwanamuziki huyo, ni mwimbaji kutoka nchini Nigeria, mtunzi wa nyimbo na mtayarishaji wa record label. Ameshirikiana na Rema kwenye wimbo huu. Rema vile vile ni msanii kutoka huko nchini Nigeria.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa
On the move.
This is still our Live Well feature. We take a look at the world of health. And today we're taking a look at a conversation that many have never had. In fact, many will be hearing about it for the very first time today. It's similar to a male version of menopause, a conversation we had just last week. And this one is called andropause. Continuing to have this conversation with us and help understand and explain what andropause is Dr. Mawunyo Emmanuel Ati, specialist obstetrician and gynecologist, as well as Ronald Abvaji, CEO of HL Consulting and Wellbeing Expert. I hear we have Dr. Ati back. Doctor, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. So the one thing that could be really confusing for those who are hearing about andropause for the first time, who may have heard about menopause, and many women do understand that, okay, menopause, women can stop or will stop their reproductive function. But so one would think, oh, if that is andropause, that might mean the same thing. Does it?
That's a good question. Fortunately for the men, as I was alluding to earlier, this drop or change is not a very sudden change. Mm-hmm. So with men, with the drop in level of testosterone, depends on which phase you are. Earlier on, no, it doesn't have any effects on the fertility. But remember, this changes brings about change in mood. And for us men, testosterone is a vital component in our sexual desire and sustenance. So when the change has now become to a point it's progressed, you have now a lower level of testosterone. That's when it then affects. So issues of erectile dysfunction comes in. Sustaining erections also comes into fore. And all these then may have the effect on fertility later on. So let's say your levels are way below 200. Then you start having such effects. Okay. But for the reproductive well-being, you're still able to still have your babies and all those. And it becomes one of the pivotal things we look at when we investigate in couples to see what's happening, those who are struggling to fall pregnant. Mm-hmm. For the male part, yes, we look at their testosterone level. It does have an effect depending on the level and also the age that you are at. So not everybody who starts having andropause will mean you become infertile. No.
I see. Well, let me come back to you, Ronald. Outside of the physical effects of andropause are some of the emotional and psychological effects. And that, I think, is the big one. I mean, we know that all across the world and on the African continent, men have the highest rates of depression and, unfortunately, the highest rates of suicide as well. Could andropause contribute to the emotional or mental health well-being of men?
Absolutely, and as Dr. Ati mentioned, a very strong driver in men. If we look at the Freudian theory of psychology, if we look at the id, ego, and superego, there's a primitive driver. And sexual functioning and sexual performance. I mean, many men think they are high performance vehicles when it comes to fitness between the sheets, right? But just note that high performance could be 2 minutes, even though you anticipate it being 20 minutes. And it's an ego dampen. It dampens your ego. It impacts then, it's got a ripple effect into your psychological and your emotional well-being. Now, if I share some stats, we know that suicide rates amongst men are a lot higher than women. And I'm talking about South Africa in particular. That's what's according to SADAG. But also we know that andropause and the phases of andropause, as you go through those phases, as Dr. Ati mentioned, there is an overlap to major depressive disorders, fatigue and low mood, because 40 to 60% of men, between over 45 that the data shows us, presents these symptoms alongside low testosterone. And emotional suppression, disconnection increases. Now, when I say disconnection, I mean you go very inward as a man. You're almost shy or embarrassed to have conversations and own up to what you are dealing with, to your loved one and to your friends. And of course, your work colleagues, because the third tier we can't forget is this impacts you at work. So when we say disconnection, it links to loneliness. Loneliness, we know, is such a serious mental health precursor that the Surgeon General in America has put it on the top to address psychological awareness and psychological issues. We know that in Japan and London, they have ministries that tackle loneliness because of its precursor towards depressive and mental health disorders. And finally, when we look at workplace impact, there has been Japanese research that shows that severe andropause symptoms directly impair work functioning, absenteeism, and early retirement risk. And when we look at work-related illness and things like burnout, it exacerbates and compounds them, and it, of course, accelerates that. And high stress at work means you're not connected. You could put yourself at risk financially because of the work impact. And when you look at 360 survey scores, when your colleagues are measuring the impact of everyone, you might not be as high as what you think you are.
And the unfortunate thing is that because not a lot of us understand or know even about andropause, that men could be going through some of these symptoms, not really understanding what's going on with them. Is there a form of help, Dr. Ati, and what would that form of help be from a medical perspective?
All right, thanks. So from our approach of looking at this, there are different components that comes into play. So when a gentleman, obviously a man is not going to come to you telling, hey, doc, I have andropause.
Yes.
They will present with symptoms. So we then look into those symptoms to try to find out what the underlying cause is. And as we know, there are certain medical conditions that may predispose a person. I think as Ronald may have mentioned, your body image. So obesity is one of the things that predisposes a person. Age, as we've mentioned, is yes. Once you hit 30, you need to know that things start changing. So you start